Our webinar today will focus on building an online presence. Now, your website is the most important marketing asset for attracting customers. And social platforms come and they go, but your website will always be an asset that you can consider your own. Now, this webinar will show best practices for websites, share affordability tools for building your presence, and outline what cost to expect when building or working with website developers. Our presenter today is no other than Harley Rivet. Harley is the president of Deep Dash Digital. He specializes in website strategy, digital marketing, and online advertising. In addition to this, Harley is an experienced trainer regarding digital marketing, having spoken at different conferences across North America, and has co-founded the Saskatchewan Professional Marketing Association. Harley's passion is helping organizations identifying emerging technologies and trends that can improve their marketing, and also providing training for those who wish to manage the process themselves. Harley has over 20 years of experience in the online industry and has worked with clients such as Canada Rail, Tim Hortons, Community Futures, and Tourism Saskatchewan. So here today to talk to us about building an online presence, here is our guest presenter, Harley Rivet. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Tamika. I'm just going to share my presentation here and make sure everybody can see it okay. Thumbs up. All right, excellent. So yeah, as Tamika mentioned, I have over 20 years in the online industry. I've built my entire career in Saskatchewan. And I've worked with a number of tourism clients over the past 20 years. It's kind of become I guess, an area of specialty. So I hope to relay some best practices here that relate specifically to the tourism industry. But some of the practices I'm going to share are just best practices in general that apply to any business that wants to maximize their website's effectiveness. So I'm just going to discuss the agenda we'll be going through here. And I do want everyone to know that a PDF of this presentation will be made available after. And as Tamika mentioned, it's also being recorded. So the agenda we're going to follow is I'm going to talk a little bit about marketing on the web first, and a general framework to follow when it comes to marketing yourself on the web and how your website is really the hub of all activities. I'm going to then go into website best practices, where I'm going to relay 10 specific website practices for you to implement on your website. Then I'll go into choosing a website platform amongst the different ones that are available, and how to choose a website developer and some of the costs associated with working with website developers. And finally, I'm going to share some creative tools that you can use that are affordable, that can help you enhance your website, add images, add video, and so forth. So that's what we'll be going through. So first off, I've been doing this for about 25 years, and in 1998 is when I built my first website. And this is what Apple's website actually looked like around that time. The web was a pretty basic place. And the first website I built was for an exporter of specialty crops. And I'm going to be honest, it was a piece of crap, but a lot of websites were pretty crappy back then. Because I mean, look, even Apple had a pretty ugly looking website. But my experience with building this website for this small exporter in 1998, I had to manually submit it to search engines. I had to manually add it to foreign trade directories. And this little website I built ended up being the best generator of new business for this company. And it was from that point forward that I had decided to dedicate my career to working in the web, working in digital marketing, because I saw the potential of it. And the web has come a long way from 1998, because this is what Apple's website looks like now. And I mean, Apple's not even a computer company anymore. They're an entertainment company. And in the last 25 years, the web has expanded exponentially. Social media has come onto the scene and become very popular. There's been so many different tools and networks and such to use, and it's become increasingly confusing at times. And now you have all these options available to you, all these other things you're supposed to be doing, and it can become overwhelming. And you'll be like, what the fun is this going to be to try and figure out where I should be spending my time? What's most important? And I'm going to tell you quite simply, none of this is magic. There's a few rules that you really need to pay attention to. There's a few main components that you want to integrate into your overall web marketing strategy. When it comes to the rules of digital marketing, it's quite simple. Number one is you want to attract traffic to your website. And that's with good content, search engine optimization, good promotions. Now, when people get to that website, then you want to convert them to action. That action might be a sale, it might be an email, it might be an inquiry. Whatever it is, you want to convert them to an action that creates a relationship with that visitor on your website. You want to analyze what's going on your website. The web, there's never been a better medium in marketing than the web, where you can actually analyze how many people are visiting your site, what they're looking at, where they're coming from. You need to take advantage of services like Google Analytics and analytical tools to help you understand your website so that you can adjust it and optimize it. And then you just continuously repeat this process. Things are continuously evolving on the web. And I'm going to mention this a bit more later on in the presentation, but a website is not something to be done. It's something that you continuously do and work on and evolve, because the web is constantly changing and you need to always be revisiting your website. Don't just set it and forget it. So that's a major takeaway I want everyone to learn is your website needs maintenance like a garden. It needs to be tended to. Now, when it comes to a framework for marketing on the web, a few slides ago, I showed that web, that messy web of all these different things, but really it comes down to these 8 critical components. And at the hub of everything you're doing is your website. All the things you're doing should be driving traffic to your website. In many cases, I see companies using social media as their main destination. People come to your website and you have these big icons that say, visit us on Facebook. Well, you're sending your traffic away from your website right off the bat to check out social media. Social media should be driving traffic to your website, not the other way around. All these things should be driving traffic to your website. And so I'll just briefly go through these 8 components that you need to focus on. At the very top is your offer. That is a discount you're offering, a special promotion. Maybe it's a free download. Perhaps it's a map. Maybe it's a guide. It's a hook. You need to have a hook on your website that people are willing to exchange information for, their email address for, so that you can start a relationship with them. And offers often, and I'm going to go through this clockwise, Offers often relate to landing pages. Landing pages is just a specific page on your website where you talk about a specific offer or a specific service, where you can ask to capture their email or request they make a call. It's a specific page that is a point of conversion. Now, these things are always, they're going to be supported by pay-per-click ads. You're going to be using email. Email is one of the most underutilized tools for marketing. It's not very sexy. It's been around a while, but it's still one of the most effective ways of reaching your audience. When you compare email to, say, a social media post, email has like a 95% chance of being delivered to your audience. A social media post has a less than 1% chance of being seen. So the math is pretty easy to do. Now, I'm not slagging social media. It's a very important piece of your web marketing. Social media and blogging. Blogging is just your website content. This social media and blogging, that's your amplification engine. You should be using social media to promote the content that is on your website so that you can drive people back to it. It helps you get the word out. And finally, you want to be analyzing all this with Google Analytics. So these 8 components, I would say if one you could drop, it might be blogging, because that takes a lot of work, but blogging can also equate to keeping your website content up to date, because blogging always produces fresh content. Search engines are always looking for fresh content. If your website is stagnant and not changing, search engines have no reason to visit it. So an active website that is continuously updated with fresh content is better for search engines. And that's where a blog or just updating your content can help you. Now, just to explain this web marketing framework a little bit more, the components about attracting traffic, as I mentioned before, is your content and your use of social media to attract visitors and leads. Your social media is used to promote and amplify. If you're converting leads, this is where you need an offer on your website. Just not a brochure. You want to have, like I mentioned before, a hook, whether that's a coupon or a special offer or a special promotion or a guide or a map. You want to present that information on a page where perhaps you're asking for an email address in return. So then you can add them to your email list. All of this should be amplified to earn customers through your paid advertising to promote the offer and email blasts to advertise these to contacts and prospects. And of course, measure and analyzing so you know how to improve. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. This should all be taking place on your website. You should be driving traffic to your website because that is your most important marketing asset. So let's talk specifically about 10 website best practices for your website. I'm just going to preface that before I get into the 10 by giving you this quote from Google study. An easy-to-use website is more important than online reviews. And this is taken from a Google study where they were researching mobile data when people were searching places to travel. And they found that high-value travelers, those ones that are actually willing to spend on travel and buy a tour, book a hotel, use an outfitter, they relied more so on the website as their key piece of information than they did on online reviews or social media. The thing to keep here in mind is people will visit your website first. Like, I think it's something like 86% in general will come across your website first when doing an online search. They will then use social media and online reviews to validate or verify your existence. But they will use your website as the main source of information. And if it's easy to use and it's a good looking website, that gives you a leg up. Now, as I mentioned before, the whole point of a website is conversion. You want to make people take an action. You want to develop a relationship with them. And that conversion can be sales, of course, if it's e-commerce enabled. But a conversion can also be a reservation request. It can be a simple email inquiry or a telephone call. It can be an information request. It can be a download. It can be a map. It can be a guide. It can be a other sorts of takeaways. It could be a coupon. A conversion can be anything that requires your website visitor to take an action that requires an exchange of information. So with that in mind, your website needs to focus on your customer's top task. And the analogy I like to use is if you're in really dire need of a bathroom, when you're looking for a bathroom at an establishment, you're at a restaurant, or maybe you're at the hotel, or maybe you're at the tour company, maybe you're at the museum, and you need to find the bathroom. You don't care about bathrooms. You don't care about bathroom history. You don't care about bathroom links. You're just wondering, where is the bathroom? That's my top task. That's the information I need to know. And so where am I going with this? Well, so often on websites, companies are very egocentric. They like to talk about themselves. They'll lead with, oh, about us, or our founder, or what makes us great. Your customer, they may eventually care about that. But the reason they're on their website right now is because they want to find some place to eat. They want to find some place to stay. They want to find something to do. And so you need to address their top task right off the bat. Don't, as we say in the marketing world, don't bury the lead. Don't bury the information that's most important to your customer. So it's not what's most important to your boss. It's not what's most important to other departments in your company. It's what's most important to the customer. And that's what you have to really look at your website and think to yourself, is this really focusing on the customer's top task? Am I giving the information they need as quickly and readily as possible? In the past, I've worked with companies that said, well, let's not give too much information on the website because that will encourage them to call us. That does not work because your competitor is just a click away. And if they're providing better information on their website, that's who the customer is going to call. So don't try to hide information or limit it because you want them to call. That's the opposite approach. The better information you provide, the more trust you build, and that will encourage them to contact you. Number 2, your website in less than 5 seconds needs to communicate who you are, what you provide, and why it matters. And I have here an example of Cypress Hills Grasslands Destination Area. They're a client I've been working with for the past 2 years. We just finished making some updates to their website, and they do a really good job of communicating who they are, what they provide, and why it matters very quickly. And you don't have to use a lot of sentences to do that. So rivers and sand, forests and grasslands, we have it all. The ultimate guide for things to do, places to stay, and attractions in Southwest Saskatchewan and Southeast Alberta. Explore maps, driving routes, travel blogs, an event calendar, our guidebook, and more. They do that really quick. It takes you 3 seconds to fully understand who they are, what they provide, and why it matters. So you have to make sure that your homepage does this very quickly and succinctly, because people will bounce off your site if they can't figure out quickly who you are, what you do, and why it matters. So you need to communicate that right up front on your homepage. It's the most visited page of your website. If it's not clear, you don't want to make people search for it. People are lazy on the web. They will bounce somewhere else if they have to click more than a couple times to find the information they need. So who you are, what you provide, and why it matters. You don't need a lot of information to convey it. Just have some pithy statements that can communicate this. Number 3, have a call to action. Now I'm using a agriculture company here as an example because they just, at the very least, are providing a call to action when it comes to their telephone, email, location, and hours. This is table stakes. This is the bare minimum call to action you should have, is making sure it's easy to contact you and your contact information is well displayed. In the case of Sure Grow Farm Services here, you go to their contact page and they actually have a interactive map where you can click on their locations and it brings up an address, phone number, and you can click for directions for their different locations. At the bottom of this screen, you can see they actually have a picture and they have a link for directions. And this is very important, especially if your business operates in a rural area, or maybe you're off the highway a distance, or maybe you're a little bit hard to find. Having your contact information very thorough is super important. And I'm going to talk about this a bit more, but quite often, if people are in your area and they're looking up information on their phone, in most cases, they're looking for contact information. If they're on their phone and they're trying to see where to stay, where to eat, what to do in a particular area, they're going to look for contact information and directions. So make sure this information is thorough. Now, ideally, you would take a call to action to the next level, and that would be encouraging people to, download a coupon, subscribe to something, your newsletter. You would be asking them to have a guide or download a map. That's ideally you would take things to that level as well if you have an offer, but you need to tell people what to do. You need to give them a call to action. Tell them to download this, go here, call us, get the free map. And this is often missing on a lot of websites. People get to their website and they just see a brochure without many call to actions of what you want people to do next. But I hope everyone here can go back after today's webinar and look at their website and at the very least determine whether they're doing a good job of providing their telephone, email, location, and hours. Because that is often what people are looking for on the go. Number 4 is to focus on simple content and design. In the 25 years I've been doing digital marketing consulting, no one has ever come to me and said, I want a busy website. I want a busy, confusing, muddled website. No one has ever said that. No one has ever wanted that. But in many cases, when you're developing a new website, you get too many cooks in the kitchen and things get jumbled with too much information that doesn't matter. If you remember, my very first best practice is to focus on the customer's top task. So you need to focus on simple content and design. And the thing here to remember is content, well-written content is very important for search engines. And search engines can sniff out people who are trying to game the system. If you're trying to stuff your content with keywords over and over, search engines can quickly determine that you're trying to game the system. The best strategy for search engine optimization is to make sure you're writing content that is good for your customer and your user with natural language that focuses on the information they're looking for. Now, when people visit websites, they don't read websites, they actually skim websites. We're lazy on the web. We want things fast, we want things now. So it's very important that your content is broken up into small chunks. Use headings, use bullet points, separate things into manageable little chunks of text so that it's easy to skim. Big blocks of text that you have to scroll a whole page worth, people are going to be like, oh, that's too much work. I'm not reading all of that. But if you were to break it up with a few images, a few headings, some bullet points, it makes it much easier to digest. So you need to focus on keeping things simple with your content and design. It's just as much about the user experience as it is about the content you're promoting. And I mean, Apple is the holy grail of a design-focused company that focuses on simple content and design presentation. And oftentimes when I work with clients, they're always like, I want my website to look like Apple. Well, easier said than done, but it's a good design inspiration for people to look at in terms of how they do a good job of simple content and design. Number 5, high quality images. There is no excuse for not using high quality images anymore. There's so many image banks available, and I'm going to talk about some of those later on, but in the tourism industry, images make or break your website. They really make or break any website, but it's of particular importance with tourism. And another client I've been working with recently is Lake Diefenbaker Tourism. And we just relaunched their website with some new images and a new gallery. And they've got a really big gallery on their website. If you're a tourism business right now, if you're a tour operator, an outfitter, a museum, I mean, even a restaurant or a hotel, you should have a really strong gallery on your website because images sell, especially that because you're in the experience business. So high quality images are very important. Hire a photographer to get some good images. Use image banks, and I'm going to share some later on, but it's very important that you have high quality images. There's no excuse to have grainy, bad resolution photos on your website because it makes you look like you're grainy and poor resolution. Number 6, having prioritized and predictable navigation. Now, this is a screenshot from Logitech's website. Whether you're familiar with this brand or not, you've probably used some of their products. They develop keyboards, computer accessories like speakers and remotes and mice and so forth. A huge company, thousands of products, okay? If you look at this screenshot of their homepage, it's a previous version of their website, but it exemplifies what I'm talking about. So if you look at this and you look at their navigation at the top, they have 2 navigation items, products and support. It's prioritized navigation because those are the 2 things that they know customers are looking for. And this website is customer focused. What is my customer's top task? Well, they're looking for products or they're looking for product support. If you look at the very bottom of the screenshot of the homepage, and you might not be able to see it, but that's where the rest of their navigation is for things like about us, contact, careers, press, blog. Their navigation is prioritized at the top for the customer's top tasks. So something to keep in mind here is with your website, sometimes companies have the urge to shove in as many navigation items as they can at the top, and you end up getting more than 7 main navigation areas. That can be overwhelming for your user. Think about what navigation areas are most important to the customer. Make them front and center. And then if you have other things like careers or press or investors or what have you, you can make those links smaller and either put them in the footer or make them a little bit smaller at the top of the page. But prioritize your main navigation. The other thing I want to mention here is quite often, companies have a tendency to talk about themselves. I mentioned this on website tip number 1, and they lead with about us. Well, that's not your customer's top task. You should be leading with your products or your services. That should be the number 1 navigation item on the left-hand side of your web page. About us can come later down. People read websites from left to right, just like we read English. That's how we read text. We read things from left to right. So start with your most important navigation on the left and then move right. And then finally, also you can perhaps put contact at the end because that's going to be the the last point of your customer's journey is to finally decide they want to contact you. The other thing about navigation is it's not a time to get creative and cute. You want your navigation to be either at the very top of your page or sometimes down the left-hand side. But in most cases, it's industry standard that your navigation is presented at the top on a horizontal line. You don't want to get cute with navigation because, as I mentioned before, people are lazy. They don't want your website to be a game they need to figure out. When you get in a car, you always know where to press for the key or where you're going to enter the key. You always know the gas pedal's on the right and the brake is on the left. These are industry standards. When it comes to your website, make sure you're following industry standards for your navigation, not getting cute and creative, making it easy so people are familiar with it from one website to the next. Number 7, your website needs to make use of multimedia. It's so easy now to integrate videos through YouTube or video or embedding a podcast or having a gallery that's pulling from some other service like Dropbox perhaps or other image services. This past summer, we did a big campaign for Tourism Swift Current and the Southwest area of Saskatchewan, where we were promoting a bunch of driving tours. And we are driving people to a landing page where they could watch videos, previews of these various driving tours. And so they'd watch this 1 to 2 minute video preview for, say, Cypress Hills Elevation Tour or Sand Hills and River Routes. They'd watch this video preview. They were embedded on YouTube. And then they could download a map where they got all of the different driving tours for Southwest Saskatchewan. And when I first got into the web business, adding video to a website felt like sending a person to the moon. It required a bunch of bandwidth and servers and technical expertise. But now when you have services like YouTube and Vimeo, you just use their infrastructure and embed that video on your website. But overall, my point is making use of multimedia to add some sizzle to your website, add some variety to your website. Maybe it's even just, embedding your social media posts. That's quite common. You can see like a Instagram feed on a company's homepage or a Facebook feed. That's one form of multimedia, but it just adds some variety to your website. And the other thing to keep in mind is not all people consume the web the same way. Some people like to read. Some people prefer to watch videos. Other people might want to listen. Other people really rely on pictures. So by using different forms of media, you can meet these needs of your visitors by giving them a variety of content to consume in different ways. So if you can, do integrate multimedia. It's also great for tourism-related businesses because you're in the experience business. Number 8 is you want your website to be regularly reviewed. You don't want to make it look like it's stuck in the 90s, like a GeoCities site. A website, as I mentioned before, it's not something to be done. It's something you continuously do. You should be looking at your website at least once every 3 months, ideally more than that, to see what updates can be made. If your website is just sitting there, it's going to be, like I said, search engines like to visit websites that are continuously updated. It gives search engines a reason to visit your website. That's the whole point of a search engine, is to look for new content. If you're not producing new content or updating your website, they have no reason to continue looking at your website and keeping you in the rankings. The other thing to keep in mind is websites, the web moves pretty fast and things are constantly changing. So things will break. Browsers will update. Does your website still work in the new browser? These things have to be looked at. At the very least, you should test the contact form on your website if you have one. Test that contact form weekly to make sure people who are submitting contact forms is reaching you. I've seen too many cases where a contact form was broken and people weren't getting inquiries from their website because they weren't testing that. So regularly reviewed, very important. Number 9, you want to make sure your website is built to web standards. 3 most important things is that it's fast loading, it has good usability, and it's search optimized. Now, when it comes to web standards, there are, certain, I guess you would say, standards when it comes to website code. There's this thing called W3C. You don't need to know that necessarily, but the point I'm trying to make here is just like when you build a house or when you build anything, you wouldn't hire a home contractor to build your house who didn't adhere to certain standards or had certain certifications. And so you want to make sure your website is being built by someone who adheres to certain standards and has the capabilities and background to do so. This is where going with cheap web developers or cheap platforms that are free to build your website, they can end up hurting you in the end because they're not built very well for the web. They're just built cheaply. And you end up getting what you pay for. Number 10 is you want your website to be mobile friendly. I'm sure most people here in the webinar today have a mobile friendly website, but if you don't, that is the first thing you want to do after today is make sure your website is mobile friendly. And the most common way to do that is what we call a mobile responsive website. So a mobile responsive website actually changes its layout depending on the device using it. So on a desktop computer, you would have the full screen effect like we see on the left here. On a tablet, it would shrink a bit, move a few things around. And then on the right, we see the mobile view where it moves things around again. That is called a responsive website. You only need one website, and it works across multiple devices and reorientates itself to suit that device. Mobile-friendly website, especially in the tourism industry, because every tourism website is now a mobile app. Probably more than almost any other service, tourism and travel, a lot of people are using their mobile device to look for information because they're either on the go in your area, or they just might be sitting on the couch, sifting through stuff on their phone and decide to research some travel. And in fact, some information from Google here, another Google study has found 60% of queries for travel destination information come from mobile devices. And this is from 2016, so it's actually a little dated. I would bet that 60% now is more like 70% or higher, especially after COVID, made us even more reliant on our devices for information. If more than 60% of traffic to your tourism business is coming from mobile devices, you better make sure your website looks good on a mobile phone, or people are going to bounce right off of it and you're losing a prospect. Another stat here is 48% of mobile users in the US are comfortable researching, planning, and booking an entire trip to a new travel destination using only their phone. Okay. Again, this is from 2017, but so I would bet it's over 50% now. We're living in a post-personal computer age now, where the majority of people accessing the internet are doing it on mobile devices. So it's imperative that your website is mobile friendly, and you should actually design your website from a mobile first perspective, thinking that the majority of your audience is probably going to be looking at your website from a mobile device. especially in tourism. So just in summary, here's the 10-point checklist. Number 1, user's top task is clear. 2, your website homepage communicates who, what, and why you are. You have calls to action. Number 4, good design and content that is skimmable, bullet points. 5, you're using high quality images. Hire a photographer. 6, you have prioritized navigation that focuses on the customer's top tasks. Number 7, makes use of multimedia, whether it's video, images, audio, what have you. Downloads. 8, regularly reviewed. 9, constructed soundly. 10, mobile friendly. So those are the 10 top tips I wanted to share. Now I'm actually going to get into website development. But before I get into that, I just want to give everyone a resource here right now. If you want a free website review, marketing.grader.com is a great tool. It's offered by a company called HubSpot, which is a great resource for digital marketing knowledge, HubSpot.com. But this free tool they offer, marketing.grader.com, will evaluate your website from a performance perspective in terms of speed and its soundness of structure, search optimization, the design experience, and security. And it'll give you a score on these 4 areas of how your website is doing, and also give you tips and instruction on how to make it better. So like I said, it's a free tool. It is offered by HubSpot, so you'll probably get some follow-up sales emails, but the juice is worth the squeeze. Check it out. It is a pretty good tool for getting some tips on how to make your website better. All right, website development. Number 1, you should have a Google My Business listing. I hope everyone here does for their business, and I'm willing to bet that most of you do. But a Google My Business listing is that search result you see on the right-hand side of Google that has like the company's hours and some photos and address. You need to make sure your Google My Business listing is up to date and complete. And often a Google My Business listing is very underutilized by companies. You can add services to your Google My Business listing. You can add promotions to it. Of course, you can add photos to it. You can have Q&As on it. It's really a one-stop shop for customers that are looking for your business. And Google says they don't prioritize their own products, but I kind of think they do, because that Google My Business listing is always top of search results. So make sure that you have a complete Google My Business listing and take advantage of the features it uses, because more and more increasingly, search engines are presenting information on a search results page that don't actually require you to click through to the website. They'll actually pull snippets of information out and present it in the search results. So people aren't even leaving Google's search results because they're getting the answer right there. And that's kind of what Google My Business listing provides for you, is it gives you that website information that you could present in a listing without people even having to click through to your website, which many still will. But again, people are lazy. If they can get the information they can in one fewer click, that's what they'll do. So I just wanted to give a plug here for Google My Business listings. It's not necessarily web development per se, but it gives you that extra search result on Google for your business. All right, website development platforms. Wix is one many of you have probably heard of. It used to be a pretty basic elementary platform that I was not a fan of, but in recent years, it has come a long way. They have lots of capabilities as a do-it-yourself website platform with templates that you can use. You can do e-commerce, you can do booking facilities, and they have great support. It's a big company, and it's a very easy do-it-yourself platform, and they provide everything for you. The Wix platform, you can bio domain, they host it for you, they provide the templates, and they do a lot of the updates to the infrastructure. So Wix is a platform to consider if you're going to do a do-it-yourself website. You can hire developers to help you, but it's more of a do-it-yourself platform. Number two for the do-it-yourselfers out there is Squarespace. They focus more so on very photo-centric websites, portfolio websites, businesses that rely a lot on imagery, like tourism businesses do. So Squarespace would be a good place to look if you're considering a new website that has some really photo-oriented type templates you can choose from. Squarespace, again, is a self-hosted solution. It's where you can register a domain, they provide the hosting, and they provide the platform. It's a one-stop shop, 24/7 support. And there's also a lot of developers out there that if you need help and you need customizations, many website developers are familiar with Squarespace, and they can help you make some adjustments to it if need be. It's quite popular amongst the web development community. The downside of a platform like Wix or Squarespace is you cannot take it somewhere else. You're basically locked into their platform. Whereas if you have a custom website built using something like WordPress, which over 50% of websites on the internet are actually built with WordPress. Something like WordPress is it's a content management system that you can actually move around from one hosting company to another, or one web development company to another, because they're all familiar with it. It's much more flexible. It gives you a lot more opportunities for customization. So WordPress is a more of a sophisticated website platform. Like I said, if you're working with a website developer right now, there's a good chance that your website is built on WordPress. The thing with WordPress, though, is you need to independently organize your domain, your hosting, and it requires consistent updates and maintenance, because there's always plugins that need updating, or the database software needs updating and so forth. So it's a bit more involved. If you're working with a web developer, hopefully they're providing those updates for you. But it's if you have more robust needs, you want a more sophisticated website, then WordPress is a good platform for that. Now, when I talk about features and capabilities, as I mentioned before, Wix, great all-in-one. It has a drag and drop interface. So what you see is what you get. You don't have to know how to code to build a website. You can just drag and drop things around. It can incorporate e-commerce. The difficulty is easy to medium. You do want to have some tech abilities to use it. Squarespace, again, it's all-in-one. It has a drag and drop interface. You can do e-commerce, and you can also customize it with different capabilities. And then finally, when it comes to WordPress, it's more of a custom design solution. It's not all-in-one. You do have to work with different services for hosting and your domain. But you can basically customize it to be whatever you want. It just is a bit more sophisticated, and you'll likely want to work with a web developer unless you're pretty tech savvy yourself. Now, it doesn't need to be expensive to use these services. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, Wix, if you want to choose a template and type in the content and add some pictures, it's for a basic business website, it's only $240 per year, and that's for everything. That's for your hosting, that's for the platform, and that's for them providing support and doing updates to the platform itself. Squarespace, you can do it yourself again, or you can get a developer to assist. If you get a developer to assist, obviously there's going to be additional costs there. But if you did it yourself, it's like $275 per year for a basic Squarespace website. If you choose to use something like WordPress, though, you're likely going to get a developer involved. if you're looking at a 5 to say 25 page website, you're probably looking at that $1,500 to $7,500 range. Hiring a developer, building a website is kind of like, how much does a house cost? It depends, right? It depends how big it is, how many features it has, how much does it have e-commerce and booking facilities. So those things all add to the cost. But for a simple website, I'd say you'd be in this range. And then you would need hosting on top of that per month. And the average hosting cost is about $20 per month. You shouldn't have to pay any more than that unless you're getting tons and tons of traffic. Now, if you're going to be hiring a web developer, here are some key things to be aware of. You need to know their experience and portfolio. Do they actually have experience in your business area? That would be ideal. Have they done tourism websites before? Their technical background. Okay, is this a one-person show? Are they a fly-by-night hobbyist? Or do they actually have a computer science degree and programming credentials? Do they have multiple team members to help with a website? There's a lot of independent freelancers out there, and some of them are great, but some of them are unreliable. So if reliability is important to you, then I would go with a web developer that has at least a few team members and not just a solo freelancer. Finally, on the need to know list is, do they offer a maintenance contract? Okay. Many web developers are really good at building you a website that looks great, but once it's launched, they're nowhere to be found. And it's difficult to reach them to get updates made, and you're just kind of left high and dry. Do they offer a maintenance contract? And what do they offer for maintenance is an important question to ask when working with a web developer to see if they will be around to help you make updates, or what do they do once a site launches? Do they provide a warranty for the first month where they'll fix any bugs? These are the kind of questions you want to ask. When it comes to budgeting and pricing when working with a website developer, hourly rates range from $85 to $150 per hour. $85 for a small developer, maybe that's your freelancer or 1 to 3 person shop. $150 is more so on the high end. Higher end, of course, it can go even higher depending if you're working with a really big web development agency or an advertising agency. Advertising agencies will probably bill you $200 an hour or more. But if you're just working with a web developer, and that would be my recommendation if you're looking to get a new website built, is work with a web developer as opposed to an advertising agency. Work with someone who specializes in websites. Hosting, if you were to do it on your own, average cost, like I mentioned before, is $20 per month. When it comes to your domains and having email, you're looking at another $100 per year. So those are the kind of costs you can expect. Now, hosting domains and email, that would not necessarily apply. Well, email, you might have to pay for email, but hosting and domains would not apply if you were using a service like Wix or Squarespace, because they bundle that in. And once you launch your website, make sure you plan around 25% of the original cost for yearly maintenance. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. A website is not something you just check off your to-do list. It's something you want to revisit at least quarterly, if not monthly, to make updates and make sure everything's working well and that it's keeping up to date with plugins and whatnot, because the web moves pretty fast. So have, 25% might be on the high end of what you need to budget, but certainly budget for maintenance, just like you budget for maintenance when you buy a car or you have a house. There's going to be maintenance. The same thing goes for a website. All right. A few website developers that I've personally worked with. Yaztech, 2Web, and Island. They all happen to be in Saskatoon just because I'm in Saskatoon. So, there's many other web developers in the province, but I'm just going to throw these 3 names out because I've actually worked with them on tours and websites. So it's not a 100% official endorsement, but I'm just relaying companies I've worked with that I'm familiar with that have done tourism related websites. Now, you can also choose to roll the dice. Go with a service like 99 Designs, where you basically just put up a brief, a creative brief, and say, hey, I need someone to build me a website or design a logo or come up with some business cards. 99 Designs uses crowdsourcing to do that for you. And you'll get bids from designers around North America, maybe even around the world. Like I said, it's rolling the dice a little bit, but it's often a very cost-effective way of doing things. On top of that is a service like Fiverr.com, where maybe you're just looking for a specific need. Maybe you just want some video editing done. Maybe you just want a logo designed. If you don't know of a designer locally or who to turn to, similar thing, you can look at Fiverr.com and just get expertise on a very specific service you're looking for. All right, website creative resources. Number one, that a lot of tourism companies in Saskatchewan often aren't aware of is Tourism Saskatchewan has a media hub of free images related to tourism in Saskatchewan that you can sign up for and use on your website, in your promotional materials, in your social media, high quality images, professional photography done of various places around Saskatchewan. Now, it's constantly being added to, so it might not necessarily represent every region of the province or every business, but it's a great place to start if you're looking at adding some general images to your website, because again, high quality images matter. Check out the Tourism Saskatchewan Media Hub. Like I said, it's free. It's free to request these photos as long as you're not reselling them and you're just using it for your website or brochures. Another free photo site I use is Unsplash. Huge repository. These are more general images that if you just want to use in your website or social media, unsplash.com. They actually are also linked to Squarespace. So Squarespace websites are integrated with Unsplash, so you can use their library when building a Squarespace website. Thousands and thousands of free images by Unsplash to add pizzazz to your website. Canva.com, this is more so a creative resource for social media posts or making some graphics for your website or a poster, a Facebook cover, various creative assets. It basically turns a non-designer into a designer. Many of you are probably familiar with this tool. It's one of my favorites for creating good-looking content in a little amount of time, and you don't have to have years of design school or experience behind you to take advantage of. Video. Video is increasingly important. A lot of the social media networks are moving towards kind of a video first approach with like Instagram Reels and TikTok videos and whatnot. Short, fun videos is kind of the way the internet's moving towards. Promo is a cool tool that also provides a mobile app that allows you to take videos, storyboard it, turn it into a video that's easily shareable across the different social media sites or that you can embed into your website. So a great tool. It makes anyone a videographer, provides cool templates where you can create custom little videos or even make video ads, what have you. Check it out. And like I said, they have a mobile app too that makes it easy to take that video on your phone and turn it into a video for your operation. So those are my 10 tips, my website development tips and my creative resources. The more you know, you can make the money flow, and your website is the asset that you're always going to own. No one can take that away from you. Social media platforms come and go. They're a great promotional tool. Social media helps amplify your message, but you should always be driving traffic back to your website because that's where you're going to convert them. That's what people are going to judge your business on the most, is when they see your website. Does it look modern? Does it look trustworthy? That's going to form most of their opinion. And I'm open to questions for the last 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Harley, for the presentation. Thank you so much. Any questions that are there? You could post them in the chat and Harley will be willing to answer this question. I think one question that I would want you to answer is that you spoke about the easeability in using your web page or your website, but then how do you balance that with reviews? Because you talk about creating a web page that persons find easy to use, but persons also focus on reviews. So how do you create the balance between both?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're both important. Of course, they're both important, but you know, the research from Google just said that people will weight the quality of your website more than an online review site. I mean, if you're a crappy company and all you have are negative reviews and a really good website, well, you know, people are going to come to the conclusion that, you know, maybe you aren't a great company despite how good looking your website is. But the thing to keep in mind about online reviews, and I always relay this to clients, is the majority of online reviews are either good or neutral. A small percentage of them are negative. And I know it sucks to get a negative review, but we all make mistakes. Sometimes things just don't go our way. So you shouldn't be afraid of reviews because the majority of them are going to be positive or neutral. If you have a good website, it's going to overcome some of those negative reviews. If you're still presenting yourself professionally and modern, you know, we're human. People know that things don't always go perfect. But if you're presenting a good website, that instills trust right off the bat. People are going to judge your organization in the first 5 seconds of being on your website. If it's an old, dated website with broken links and spelling mistakes, they're not going to think your website is very well run. So it's their first point of contact in most cases. Make sure your website puts your best foot forward. It's your 24/7 salesperson. It's your main publicist. It's your always online marketing. So again, your website is your most important asset.
Thank you so much, Harley. Thank you for responding to that question. There are no more questions and we are a little over time, I can see. But thank you so much Tourism Saskatchewan. We are proud to always host these webinars. We're always interested in seeing how best we're able to find the experts in these different areas to assist operators just to improve their businesses and their offerings to their customers.